Welcome back to another edition of the Hawk Off the Press podcast. I'm your host, Gazette Hawkeyes reporter, John Seppi. I am excited to be joined today by Iowa defensive line coach Kelvin Bell. Kelvin, thanks for joining me.
Hey, you're welcome, man. No problem.
So let's first start off with NIL. It's now been almost a year since we've been in this NIL era. What was your opinion July 1st, 2021, when that first became allowed? And how has that changed now that we've seen about 11 months or so of this play out?
Well, when it passed, honestly, I'm all for it. Name, image, likeness. I think that these student athletes deserve to have a right to earn money based off their name, image, likeness. Really, my opinion changed, John, a lot sooner than when the legislation passed in 2021. My opinion changed back in 2020 during COVID, because I was on the side of the fence where I'm like, well, student athletes, they're getting a full scholarship to go to, whatever university. That's plenty of compensation. That's a great exchange for being able to play the game of football. But it wasn't until 2020 when COVID hit, and every day I'm going to get something stuck up my nose for testing. Coach Woods and I, we love to ride our bikes after practice, and we're riding our bikes around Iowa City, and there's like tumbleweeds like rolling down Clinton Street, and like there's no one on campus. And I'm wondering myself, and I'm like, why are we here? Like, why, how come no one else is on this campus, but we're still here? And I think about the last game of the season, or the +1 game of the season. The Big Ten wanted us to play a +1 game. And we were supposed to play Michigan at the 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern time slot on ESPN. And the Big Ten championship game, mind you, was going to be played at noon and was going to be decided long before we played that game. So we're practicing, and I'm thinking to myself, and we're practicing, I'm meeting with the guys, I'm thinking to myself, ultimately that game was canceled because Michigan didn't have enough players because of, protocols. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why are we here? Like, other than satisfying this 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock time slot on ESPN, which is going to bring in a lot of money, why are these young men here on campus? All of their classes that the scholarship pays for have all moved online. So can we move the game online? No, the game's got to be played. So at that point in time, I realized, I was like, wow, like I really started to pay attention to the dollars and cents of college football. And, say what you want, the players are the product. Okay. And yes, having a scholarship, and there's some kids who are walk-ons that play too now. So, but having a scholarship, that is an incredible opportunity. I was a scholarship student athlete. I totally get it, but that pales in comparison to the jobs that have been created around campus, to the buildings that have been erected around campus because of that product on the field. And we're not asking the schools to pay the players. That's not what we're asking them to do. That's not what NIL says. The NIL is not saying, hey, university, you pay the player. What NIL is saying is give that young man, give that young woman an opportunity to earn money from their name, image, and likeness for being that player. And I think it's wonderful. And that's the way things they are currently. I don't see it going away. I think the toothpaste is out of the tube. I don't see it going away. And I think everybody from coaches, from university alumni to, fans of college football just need to come to grips with this is the way it is, and, make the best of it. I think they got to make the best of it because I don't think it's going away.
And then when you're out recruiting, how much does the NIL question come up?
It doesn't come, for me, it doesn't, I haven't experienced it as much as I thought I would, but it's out there though. It's kind of like the elephant in the room. Whereas, I've lost some players that I've been on, that I was on hot and heavy, and I thought that I was going to get a chance to get these guys, and all of a sudden it's gone cold. And I can't help but in the back of my mind think that NIL is the reason, because that's the one conversation in terms of competition, competing with schools, that is, I would think Iowa would be on par with a lot of other schools. I'm talking about kids, in terms of distance, in terms of education, in terms of graduation rate, in terms of development of players for the NFL. Like, we have a lot of things to be proud of, a lot of things to sell here. But the one thing that I can't confidently sell is NIL, because I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about it, and I don't. There's nothing in place. There isn't anything in place as of right now for me to even point the kid in the right direction. So absolutely, it's a factor. And when you don't know about it, you don't talk about it. But when you're in sales, if you're not shooting all your bullets, someone else is. Someone else is. So you got to make sure that you want to be doing everything that everyone else is doing, or else you're going to fall behind. Period.
Are there recruits that you've been looking at that you think collectives from other schools have been trying to induce to come to their school?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can think back, even going back as far as, the with the high school kids that I've developed a relationship with, from, recruiting them from, 9th grade, 10th grade. Those conversations haven't come up. But, like, for instance, with the transfer portal, if you're not dealing with NIL, with the transfer portal, you can kiss the baby. Like, you ain't getting that kid. I don't care. You ain't getting them. You're not getting them, because, those kids understand, they may be transferring for 1 year, 2 year, and money talks. So if you're in the portal thinking that you're going to sell your graduation rate, and you're going to sell, that kid can stay at that school and still achieve what he wants to achieve. How else are you going to sweeten the pot?
Wow, that makes for an interesting recruiting discussion then.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then with that, it sounds like Iowa's working, well, I should say Iowa supporters are working on a collective. How much would that help with that recruiting process?
I think it puts you back on par. Instead of being behind, it puts you back on the level. Now, Iowa's collective, let's put it, once a collective gets started here, and, people start to contribute, and our players start to, whether it be through the collective, or whether it be through, outside corporations that want to sponsor our players, in whichever way, once we get those things in place and there's evidence, I think it's going to put us back on par. And what I mean by that is, there's things that are still going to be true. Okay. Iowa has a collective. Alabama has a collective. Okay. If Iowa's collective is going to generate, and Iowa's collective is going to pay, X plus 1,000, whatever Alabama's collective is going to play, that kid's still going to Alabama. Like, is he's still going to roll Tide. But on the flip side, when teams that are more like in your wheelhouse, from the teams that we butt heads against in recruiting, if you don't have a collective and they do, then you're going to lose those kids. That's just one more thing that you don't have. So what it's going to do is it's going to put us back in the fight that we were fighting 5 years ago, and not further behind it.
And then how tough is it to be kind of learning yourself as NIL changes seemingly by the week in this kind of infancy stage of it?
It is tough. It's extremely tough, because the one thing I think all coaches pride themselves on are being great teachers, which means being a great communicator, which means making something that sounds really complex sound really simple. Like those are the marks of a great teacher, a great communicator. If you don't know, then you can't communicate. You can't teach. So yeah, it's extremely tough to have, and I try not to have conversations about things that I don't know a lot about, because I don't want to misstep or misspeak or or have to backtrack and say any of that stuff. So it really takes it really hampers your ability to communicate fully with student athletes if you can't talk about it knowledgeably. You want to be competent.
Now, do you see NIL maybe having an impact on early enrolling, or do you think that's a separate kind of camp there?
I think those things are separate. Whether a kid, if a kid if he's negotiated an NIL deal, whether he comes to school in January or June, it's still going to be there. So, it's really going to be up to that kid and whether or not, and that kid and that family, whether or not they want to forego those high school spring sports, whether they want to forego that prom, to get their college career started, 6 months earlier than it would. But no, I don't think there's going to be I don't think you'll see a direct correlation between early enrollees and NIL. I don't think you'll see that.
And then if you were kind of college football czar and could change anything you'd like about NIL, is there something you'd change?
That's a good question, John. People get upset about the tampering. People get upset about the tampering. They get upset about the pay for play. They get upset about, this prospect chose this school because they're giving them so much, getting so much NIL money. John Wooden, one of the all-time greatest coaches, one of his quotes says is that, young people need a model, not a critic. Okay. And I don't think we've done a good job from the standpoint of, the NCAA, from the standpoint of college coaches, because, those kids sit in those rooms every day and they watch us move around from job to job, in the open market. Hey, where's coach? Oh, he's gone. He's gone to, XYZ, and his contract is very public and he's making more money at school X than he was making at school Z. So, where's the model? If we're supposed to be the model for the young people, I think they're only following what we do on a yearly basis. I mean, there's coaches that change polos. They change pullovers every December. So why can't the kid do it? Especially if the NCAA is gonna open up rules for prospects to do that. They're just watching us do it too. So, in terms of change, to go back to your question, one thing that would I change? I mean, yeah, I don't want people poaching players from other teams based off of dollars and cents. But like I said, that happens with coaches every year. So, yeah, I don't know.
And then going back to your playing days, if NIL was allowed, is there one company that you would really want to have an NIL deal with?
Oh man, that's another good question, John. That me personally, I mean, obviously, I think about like food places, where I can get some, some free grub. But that was probably what 18-year-old Kelvin was thinking about. 39-year-old Kelvin's probably, I would want a place where I could make an impact, some place where I could have a platform to be able to influence people. And whatever that may be, I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head, but I think about this right here. Let me think about this, like what we're doing right now in terms of NIL. I'm doing this this is going to be a podcast, right, for you.
Yep.
Okay. I coach college football at the University of Iowa. I'm not getting paid anything to do this with you right now.
No.
Nothing. Okay. And what was told to me is that this is a great opportunity to get the brand of Iowa football out there, to get fans excited. What's in it for me?
Maybe I'll buy you a Big Grove.
Okay. You can get me a Big Grove. We can do that. But but I mean, I know it's great for the university, and I know it's great for the fans, and I know it's going to be great for you too, because I know part of your job is making sure that you get your clicks and that people are reading your stuff, and but at the end of the day, what's in it for me?
And then switching gears from one hot topic in college sports to another hot topic in college sports with the transfer portal. Do you see this going away, or is this something like NIL where it's here to stay?
No, I don't see it going away. I don't. Again, I go back to the John Wooden quote of the model, not a critic. And for whatever reason, some things just don't work out. You know what I mean? Like in terms of whether it be marriage, or whether it be now where you want to attend school, or whether it be whatever you buy a new car. Like some things just don't work out. And I think this is I think it's awesome to give kids an opportunity to, hey, this is not a good fit for me. I need out. And there was no transfer portal back when I played, and there was a lot of red tape to transfer to one school from the next. You had to sit out a year. There was a lot of things that discouraged a young man from leaving that situation. But you have to look at it too, like that transfer portal works both ways. Okay, the kid may want out because it's not a good fit. Okay, but the football program may want that kid gone too. And now this is a win-win. If used properly, it's a win-win because I'm giving you an opportunity to free yourself of your obligation of playing here, and you can go find a better fit. And I think that after a year or two, maybe 2 years or 3 years, once both sides have come to that, have agreed to that, I think it could be something that's really beneficial for both sides. Okay, it's not working out for you here on both sides. Let us help you find someplace else to go. Okay, but now when you take the transfer portal and you combine it with the current rules and regulations of NIL, it looks like free agency in the NFL. That's what it looks like, which is more and more what outside of catching the ball, outside of the clock stopping after every first down, and having to catch the ball with both feet in bounds. This game is looking more and more like the NFL every single day. It's just hiding behind the shield of academia. So I think the transfer portal is awesome because it can relieve a lot of stress and a lot of pressure from both sides. Now, if you're getting your players poached through the transfer portal, okay, and NIL is a factor in that, then I think that your collective needs to do a better job. That collective can be used, as much as that collective can be used for recruiting, it can also be used for retention. Keep your guys around.
That's something I don't think people talk about much, is the retention aspect of that.
Absolutely. You have a young man that's going to have an opportunity. He can come back to college, or maybe he's a 6th, 7th round draft pick or free agent at best. Okay, collective. How can we retain this? I mean, you have to start winning. What's going to be better? Free agent contract, maybe USFL, or come back to school. Let's think about that.
And then for you as a coach, how do you approach every December or January the transfer portal as a possible means of addition and means of recruiting?
Well, I thought you were going to ask. I thought you were going to ask about how I approach it with my players. I'll address that one first because I think that's critical. I send my players a text message. I mean, that you can ask them. I'll send it out to the D-line group chat. Hey, who's been approached? Who's been approached for NIL to leave Iowa? Let me know right now. Not so I can go bang on a drum and say how upset I am, but like, hey, now at least I have an opportunity to try to keep you if I want to keep you. I may help you go. But I always ask those guys, who's been contacted, who's been is anybody trying to get you to leave? And they all respond, nobody, coach, which means we ain't got nobody wants, which is fine because I love all my guys. But from the standpoint of recruiting, I'm not really into the portal that hot and heavy because I'm a big believer in especially kids that I recruited out of high school. Like if they've gone somewhere else and now they're in the portal, yeah, you should have come to Iowa in the first place. I told you it wasn't going to work over there. Like, and now I don't want it. The other thing is I think there's always some reason that kids leaving, and it's based off of competition. Like this, there's no shade tree in Iowa City. This isn't a place for you to come and cool off and kind of hide out and think things are going to be cool. The sun is hot here too. Okay. and the competition in our room is really good. So it's got to be a good fit. I mean, it's got to be a fit from a culture standpoint. That kid's got to come in and fit in our room seamlessly. And there can't be a whole lot of maintenance with it. And I also have to have a need. But I'm always, in terms of the portal, I'd rather look inward on our team first. Is there somebody here? He may be in another position room. Okay, but is there somebody here that can help fill the need that I have? I'm going to check that before I check the portal, because that if he's in the building, that kid understands the culture. If he's in the building, that transition would be seamless. I think of a guy like Joe Evans, he was in the building. I don't have to go to the portal to find that guy. He's here. But I'm also not interested in taking the bounce back from some FBS school. This is just me personally in my room. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in taking the bounce back from, name a Power 5 school. The third string D tackle at, some other school, not interested. Okay, not interested. But if it's a good player from an FCS school, if it's a good player from a MAC school, oh, absolutely. That kid's got a chip on his shoulder. Absolutely, I'm all for it. And especially if I'm not going to tamper. But if he's in the portal and he's coming from one of those and he's got that chip on his shoulder that he wants to play at the big time, the Power 5 level, I'm all about that kid. Okay. But that kid that can't get any playing time at directional, whatever, that kid that can't get any playing time, that kid that can't touch the field at another Power 5 school, no, I'm not interested.
It seems like with the numbers of how many people are in the transfer portal, it could be almost a game of musical chairs. Do you see that playing out?
Really, the musical chairs, you take the portal, take high school kids, take junior college kids. Now you're talking the whole set of musical chairs. I mean, there's some staffs around the country that are allocating scholarships for the portal. Okay. We don't do that. And I'm not saying right, wrong. I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong, but we don't do that. And I would hate for a program that's based in development like ours. I would have a hard time. It would have to be a unique situation where I would take a portal kid over a high school kid, with all things being equal. I'm going to have more time with that high school kid. I'm going to be able to. I'm not going to have to break those bad habits. I'm going to have longer time to break those bad habits. From a high school kid over a portal kid. So, I mean, things can get a little hairy for the high school kid too. If, in this win now environment that we're in college. For instance, I'll give you a great story. I had a coach, I was up in Michigan and for college days, and I had a coach ask me, he said, what's going on at Iowa? Why do you guys develop so well? Why do you guys, how can you take a Tyler Linderbaum as a defensive tackle and have enough foresight to say he's going to be a first round center and then move him over and play him there and he plays well? And I said, we have time. And that is critical in terms of college football. There's not a lot of institutions, there's not a lot of places that have time. So that's why it's maybe beneficial for them to use the portal to get that 1 year or 2 year plug guy so that they can, get the results that they want. We don't need to do that here at the end. And that's a testament to Coach Ferentz. That's a testament to our athletic department and administration that we have the time to develop that guy. So, the high school transfer, the transfer portal guy isn't as attractive to me as the high school guy, because I know that I'm going to have time to develop that guy. Now, if I knew I didn't have time and I knew I needed to win right now, oh yeah, I'm in the portal. I'm going to get a guy that's played college football, a guy that's done this, and I'm not just going to be in it. I'm going to live in that thing, because that's what I have to do to compete. But we don't have to do that.
And then, for maybe it's not as big of a deal considering you're a little more insulated from the transfer portal, but going back to if you were the college football czar, anything you'd change about the transfer portal?
Oh, now that's a good. I think the deadline, I think it was May 1st this year. I think it needs to be it needs to be more publicized so that people know. So I think you need to give, I'm all with kids leaving. I mean, all with kids being eligible to play right now. But I think the deadline needs to be more publicized. And I also think, just in terms of the transfer portal, it should, trying to think of it, because I think it's a great idea. I think, a kid should be able to transfer, once a kid, this isn't a change, but once a kid's a graduate, he should be able to do what he wants to do. The deadline shouldn't matter from a portal standpoint. And I think all those things are already in place, which is good. But, I hope you can get out of this. I'm a fan of the portal. I'm a fan of NIL. And I can't see I can't even think of a real tweak from a portal wise that I would change, because I think it's just, I think it's good. I think it's a way to alleviate pressure on both sides, alleviate pressure from the roster and alleviate pressure from the kid.
And then you're just coming off now the end of kind of a busy recruiting period. What goes into this April, May period of evaluation from a coach standpoint?
This is a great question. And I don't think a lot of people understand what we do during this time period, how it works. From April 15th to May 31st is the evaluation period of college football. And they give us 168 evaluations to use during that period, April 15th to May 31st. And an evaluation is every time a coach leaves campus, that counts as an evaluation. So you can leave campus and you can visit 8 schools. It's only one evaluation. Okay. In the spring, the head coach cannot recruit. Okay. He cannot go off campus to recruit. He can field phone calls. He can have Zoom calls. He can do FaceTime with recruits, but he can't leave. Let's, for instance, use Coach Franz, for example. He can't leave Iowa City to go recruit kids in the spring. That's illegal. So you're looking at 10 coaches that are out at a time recruiting. So, and you can start as soon as you want or as late as you want. We're one of the schools that start later. We didn't start our evaluation period until April 25th, and it started April 15th. We went through spring ball, and then we started our evaluation period. So every time a coach goes out, I said that's one. So on that Monday, April 25th, 10 coaches go out. That's 10 evaluations. By the end of the week, the end of the work week, by Friday, you've used, if all 10 coaches have been out on the road, you have used 50 of your 168 evaluations. You can see you have the opportunity to evaluate each prospect twice, but no more than once a week. So if a coach has showed up at your school twice during the evaluation period, that's a big deal. Okay. If a coach hasn't showed up not one time during the evaluation period, that's also a big deal, because that probably means that coach isn't interested in you. Planes, trains, automobiles, it doesn't matter. We're going to go see the kids that we need to go see. We're going to stop by there. We're going to visit with them, whether it be a prospect kid, whether it be an area kid. And if a coach has showed up to your school twice, that's a big deal. That means there's some serious legitimate interest there, because their time is short. But if they haven't shown up to see you in school, that absence, that silence should be deafening for that prospect that, okay, maybe that school ain't it. But 168 evaluations, we go through it, we cross-check each other. My area is Indiana, and the west side of Michigan, and then I recruit defensive line on a national level. So I'll be traveling all over trying to hit my area, trying to hit my positions. And I got to move as efficiently as I can. The last week that I was out on the road, Coach O'Keefe retired. So now I'm out in Connecticut. Connecticut has college days. So I did Hartford, Connecticut. I did 7 prep schools on Monday. Okay. I take a flight to Detroit. Okay. Detroit is not my area. Okay. But I'm there seeing kids that play the position. Okay. So I do Detroit on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I fly to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's not my area, but I'm there doing position recruiting. So I do Cincinnati on Wednesday. I drive to Indianapolis. Indianapolis is my area. So I'm there doing area and position recruiting. Thursday night, I fly from Indianapolis to Kansas City. Kansas City is not my area. I'm there doing position recruiting. So I do Kansas City, see the guys I need to see there, evaluate those guys, and then I drive to St. Louis for a track meet on Saturday morning. So, those 6 days, those are 6 evaluation days that I use 6 days, but I was able to see, over 30 or 40 prospects because of, between area and position. And that's just 1 week for me. And imagine that for every coach on staff. And I can't say enough about the high school coaches, what they've done during that time, because the high school coaches are unbelievable at providing the access, providing the background information on these kids, because, the NCAA wants us to recruit them, but they make it hard for us to do it because we don't get a chance to really, you don't really get a chance to know them during these periods because the window is so short and you're limited in what you can do and talk about during those times. So it's a challenge.
And then anything that would be helpful for somebody listening to this, whether they are a coach, whether they're a trainer, whether they're a recruit or a parent, or just a fan, that'd be helpful for them to know about this evaluation period.
Well, I just think the evaluation period is what it is. You're not supposed to have recruiting conversations. I know they go on; those are called bumps, but it's not what you're supposed to do. There's rules to it for the coach too. Like for instance, I can't. I talk to kids. They say, "Hey, coach, hey, I'm working out after school, and I'm working out at this training facility. Hey, guess what, Johnny? I can't go." Okay, the NCAA states that from my evaluations, I can see you at high school sanctioned events, okay, and I can see you work out on your high school campus. Okay, I can't see you work out at the gym across town. That's a violation. So in terms of access, if you want to be evaluated by me, you're going to have to meet me halfway on helping me follow those rules. And that's high school coaches, that's trainers, that's parents, that's all to be understood. Like, we can't visit kids off campus, not during that evaluation period. There's another period for that called the contact period. We'll get there in December, where you can see kids off campus. But we're not in that period right now. So I just think that just understanding the rules, what I can and what I can't do, will make my job a lot easier. And also, I talk to kids all the time about recruiting being about elimination. It's not about addition. The evaluation period is a great time to eliminate, both from the prospect standpoint and the school standpoint. If I'm in the school and I've pulled your transcripts and I'm looking at it and I'm trying to compare your transcript here in Detroit versus the transcript in Kansas City, it's really easy for me, just based off the paper, to say, we're not going to do that. We're going to go this way. From the standpoint of the prospect, if school X is your dream school, and school X is in your city, but they haven't stopped by your school to see you, then you need to give up on that dream school, okay? Because they're not interested. If they were, they'd stop by and evaluate. I just think there's so much that can be learned during this period that you don't see this stuff on Twitter. We don't get to tweet about this stuff. We don't get to tweet about. They don't have this stuff on Twitter. This is real spill from me. So just make sure that guys understand what the period's about. What's the best thing to do is to be at your high school on the day. Oh yeah, if I show up to the school and you ain't there, guess what? Hey, it's about elimination. It's not about addition. There's so many guys that are out there that it's just like, it's hard to, you don't want to hang on to one thing for two. And when the talent and everything's equal, everything the kid does, everything that happens in the school, everything you experience, it all matters. And I'm looking for any reasons to kind of hyper focus on the guys that I really want.
And then we're going into camp season. Why is that so important for prospects?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's one, in our camp, every state has different rules. And like in the South, I'm from Mississippi. The Southern states have spring football. When I go down there to watch a prospect, I'm not trying to bump them. I'm not trying to see the high school coach in between science class and lunch. I'm not trying to do any of that stuff. I can show up and I can watch that kid practice football with helmet and shoulder pads in a controlled environment. That is huge from an evaluation standpoint. They don't have spring football in the Midwest. Okay. And I know there's reasons why they don't, and they've got their reasons. I'm not trying to advocate for it here. I'm not saying they should have it, but they don't have it here. And in the Midwest, usually the high school coach does a lot of other things than just coach football. He's got a science class to teach or a health class to teach. So the access, and the opportunities to evaluate and see what you need to see are limited in certain states because of, how the high schools associations, how they organize things. So when I ask you to come to camp, now I'm trying to get that same evaluation. I'm not asking the kid from Mississippi to come to camp. If I want to watch him play football, I'll go down there. I'll go down there on a Thursday in May, and I can watch him play. I'm not asking the kid from Florida to come to camp. If I want to watch him, see how he responds in a football environment, I can go down there on a Tuesday and watch that kid practice. Okay, but if you're in the Midwest, if I ask you to come to camp, that's because I want to see more. I need to see more, and I didn't have an opportunity to see it. Unlike the kid in Florida that I did see. And a lot of times kids, you tell them to come to camp, they get the stank face, like they smell the fart. They don't like, want me to come? Yes, because I need to see more. I need to see, I need to see you do more. I want to experience that. It's not a knock on you. It's just the situation that we're in based off of what you can and can't do, at your school. So, I think that the camp part, and as kids, it's easier to get young kids. The young kids are eager. Boy, they're eager. And I think older kids with no offers are eager to come to camp. And I think it's great. I think our camp, I'm not tooting our own horn here. I call it how it is. I think our camp is awesome from the standpoint of our numbers. It's not a meat market. It's not 300 and some kids running around, running 40s and vertical jumping. Our numbers are capped, and there's teaching, and the camp is taught by our coaches. So as much as it is an evaluation camp, it's an instructional camp, and I hope the kids leave with something better, leave learning something that they didn't know before they got here. But when I ask a kid to come to camp, that is not something they should turn their nose up or feel jilted. I want to get a closer look. And if you're interested in Iowa and you're interested in being coached by myself or the rest of our coaches, you will jump at that opportunity. I'll say this, going back to that evaluation period, if a coach hasn't been to your, in those 168 evaluations, if a coach hasn't been to your school, hey, Johnny, if the coach hasn't been to your school during those 168 evaluations, don't take mom and dad's money and go to that camp. Because he could have come by the school. He could have come by the school and showed some type of interest, but he didn't do it. And here you are spending mom and dad's money to go to the camp. That don't make a lot of sense to me. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, but going back to your question, those camps, especially for kids in the Midwest that we don't get a real football evaluation on outside of their tape, they're critical for us. And if you look at our roster is comprised of Midwest kids that didn't get an opportunity to do spring football. And a lot of those kids that are on our roster, they came to our football camp and solidified their spot on the roster. So I just think it's another way for elimination for us too. If I ask the kid to come to camp, if his being on the roster is critical, if it's contingent upon coming to camp and they don't come to camp, it's about elimination, not addition.
Can get that Sharpie back out.
Yeah.
Then a couple of football questions before I let you go. During spring, Lucas Van Ness moving from inside to outside. Looking back, how has that gone? A lot of people have made a big deal out of it. And I haven't. And from this standpoint, people know how I feel about the defensive line. I like to look at them, and I don't want this to come off as negative. I really don't. The people take stuff and run with it, but like 4 tires on a car, man. I don't know if it's the rear driver's side tire or if it's the front. I don't know, and I don't care. I just need 4. And I want them all. I want them all to be able to do the same thing. And yes, some of them look different and, things of that nature. But in my perfect world, I got 4 tires in the car and I can rotate them in and out wherever they want. So he got 15 practices on outside playing defensive end because
we had a need. I mean, obviously Van Valkenburg graduates. Joe Evans missed this entire spring with he had a surgery. He'll be back in June, no problem, but he didn't practice this spring. So I put him out there just based because this going to give me an opportunity, one, to give him a look out there. Two, it's also going to give me an opportunity to get a Jeremiah Pittman some reps on the inside, to get Logan Lee and Y.A. Black more reps on the inside, because that's one less body that they're competing for reps for. So, I mean, he's out there. Deontay Craig is out there. And again, that benefited from Joe Evans being out. But don't be surprised to see Deontay Craig taking reps inside. Again, it's all about four tires. And I want to get to the point, during the season where, and injuries happen and a lot of things go happen, but I don't want to be panicking looking for, that right driver side tire that needs to be there, or else it can't play, or you can't drive. Like, I want to be able to have my guys be flexible, be interchangeable, and that's critical. I hope that answers. Lucas did a really good job out there, but I hope the world doesn't turn upside down on its axis if when we play South Dakota State, he's right back inside, because that very well could happen.
All right. And then one thing I was hearing a lot at the NFL Combine from your past opponents was how you know what you're going to get when you're playing Iowa. Obviously, that's worked out well, considering one of the people who said it was Brock Purdy, who lost to you every time. So how has that maybe simple is oversimplifying it, but that more straightforward, you know what you're going to get approach resulted in so much success for the Iowa defense?
I think it helps on a lot of different levels. I think one, it helps in our teaching. When we all have a teaching process, when we're teaching these, like when our guys show up here, when our freshmen show up here June 12th and they start on June 13th, we have a process of teaching where we start to where we're going, which I think is critical to helping these young men build not only a fundamental base in terms of how to do what we're asking to do, but also an X and O base, knowledge base, an X and O knowledge base, that teaching, that being so consistent and the verbiage not changing, I think helps us with our teaching. Two, it gives us answers. Because you're going to see a number of different things from different offenses throughout the year. But when you're simple, when you're simple, or when you're very knowledgeable about what it is you're trying to do, you have adjustments for everything. Okay. Now, those adjustments are just adjustments. It's still about the Jimmies and Joes. Don't get me wrong. They're going to have good players, and you got to have good players too to make those adjustments. But from the schematics, because we've been so consistent, because it's been the same for so long, we know those answers and the things that we need to do. And so then it really gets down to execution. And it's going to get down to the players as well. We want them to be extensions of us on the field. So those players that can make those adjustments before they have to come over to the sideline, like, those are the guys that are going to be playing. Like, those are the guys that are going to be at the front of the line. And I think the only way that you can get those players to that point is it's going back to the teaching, having that teaching progression, and making sure that they understand inside and out, not only what their job is, but what everybody else's job is, and ultimately the big picture that we're trying to achieve as a defense. And I think you can't do that if you're always changing things around. You can't do that if every week the rule is different. I think you're going to have a hard time, and you're going to get beat just off of communication. If we're going to beat us, we want someone to beat us physically. Beat us because, you got better mommies and daddies than our guys. Like, beat us for that. Don't beat us because from a schematic thing that, we don't have the right guys on the field to make those types of adjustments. And us being so consistent for so long, I think our guys really buy into it. And that's really why you see a lot of our best guys, they play their best football for us in year 3 and 4, because, they've gone through fall camp. They've gone through bowl prep. They've gone through spring ball of that same defense. So it becomes old hat for them. we're trying to figure out ways to challenge them in year 3 and 4. You know, new ways to trip them up. And, you know, I think those, you know, that also leads to our success.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate this. This is great. Maybe a second or third Big Grove will be heading your way.
That's what, hey, look, you want to get back on the NIL thing? I'm telling you, I had a talk with a guy. I was like, you know, I coach here, and maybe it's in my contract to do these things. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't really read it. But all I know is that if I don't do this, I'm still going to be able to coach football here. Okay. So I get back to the question: what's in it for me? Yeah.
And thanks again to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of the Hawk Off the Press podcast. I'll be back with another edition next week. Until then, we will talk Hawks later.